All right, welcome back. This will be Unit 1, Lesson 3. This one is titled A Gallery of Data because the main activity in this lesson is going to involve you getting in groups and doing what we call a gallery walk. As a group, you're going to be given a data set. You're going to go to one of the whiteboards in the room and create a dot plot, a histogram, and a box plot to represent that data set. And then you're going to walk around and look at other groups' work and how they did their data sets. And then you'll be able to critique each other's work and hopefully have a better understanding of what it means to not only create the data plot visual displays, but also to interpret what those visual displays are telling you. So as we get started, today's lesson, we're going to make, compare, and interpret data displays. On the left, you can see a histogram. On the top right, you can see a box plot. And on the bottom right, you can see a dot plot. Now, all three of these represent the same data, but you can see that each one has its strengths and its weaknesses, and therefore each one allows you to see something different. Your learning target for today says, I can graphically represent the data I collected and critique the representations of others. Again, this goes to that gallery walk that we're going to do for an activity. By the end of class, you should agree with this statement. You should feel that you are confident in your ability to represent a data set in the three graphical forms that we talk about: the dot plot, the histogram, and the box plot. And you should feel comfortable looking at data representations that other people have done and being able to interpret their visual displays as well. So by the end of this lesson, if this is not a statement you agree with, make sure you bring any questions to me or your other classmates, and we will try to get that clarified for you. Okay, as usual, we have our warm-up for about 5 minutes. Again, you're going to look at it yourself. Then you can work with those around you. And then towards the end of the time, we'll discuss it as a class. And this is another notice and wonder, but this time it's about dot plots. Again, this is on Kiddom, so if you prefer to do it in the Kiddom website, go ahead. Otherwise, you can go on a piece of paper or feel free to use one of the whiteboards in the room. So what this says is that the dot plots represent the distribution of the amount of tips in dollars left at two different restaurants on the same night. They want to know, what do you notice and what do you wonder? So we got about 5 minutes total. Take a minute or two to come up with your own ideas. What do you notice about the two dot plots? And are there any questions that it brings up? Then get with the students that are around you and share your notices and wonders with them. Maybe that sparks something that you hadn't noticed. And then about the last minute or so, we'll come back together as a team. We'll share out everybody's ideas, and then we'll move on to the next activity. All right, so now that we've done the warm-up, we're going to move into the activity for the day. And you see this activity should take about 25 minutes. And in that 25 minutes, it's going to involve you thinking about the problem, you working with your group on the problem, you going around the room to look at other groups' works, and then us coming together as a class to make sure that everybody understands what this lesson was about. Again, this is on Kiddom, so if you would like to do it there, you can, but you can just do it on the whiteboards around the room or on a piece of paper at your desk. So here it says that I will assign your group a statistical question. If you go to the next slide, these are the four situations. So pick one of these situations, and then you will use that data set that you pick in order to create a dot plot and a histogram and a box plot. So you are going to create all three different types of visual representations of that one data set. Then you are going to write 3 comments that interpret that data. You could do one statement for each visual representation. You could write a statement that compares 2 of them together. But on your whiteboard, you're going to create your 3 visual displays, and then you're going to have your 3 comments that interpret the data that you have displayed. Once your group is done, then you're going to move around the room and look at the other visual displays that have been created. And it says, as you visit each display, write 1 sentence or 2 summarizing the information in the display. So you want to look at their visual displays and try to pull some type of information out of it that you understand from what it shows. And this is what we call a gallery walk. You put up work, and then you go and look at the work of others while the others are coming and looking at your work as well. Again, the very next slide has the 4 situations. Each situation has its data set. So you will need to decide how to take your data set and turn it into the dot plot, the histogram, and the box plot. And then write 3 statements that interpret what you have created visually. So now as we come back together, after everybody has had a chance to create their visual displays and look at the visual displays of other groups, these are some questions that we want to think about together as a class. First one says, what are some ways you summarized the information in the display? So when you were the one summarizing it, what are some of the things that you interpreted about the data displays? Our next question, if you collected data from all of the students in the school instead of just your classmates, which would you rather create? Would you rather do a dot plot or a box plot, and why? Again, the data displays that you did today were representing data that may have been collected on one class and one class only. So now, instead of the 20 people in this class, think about if you went out and you surveyed the 600 or so students in the entire school, and I told you to display that visually. Would you rather do a dot plot or a box plot? And what is your reasoning for that? The third question on this slide asks, what is the shape of the distribution in your dot plot? When we talk about the shape of distributions, we talk about, is it skewed left or right? Is it unimodal? Is it bimodal? Is it bell-shaped and symmetrical? Is it uniform? What type of shape would you use to describe the data plot that you created? All right. Our next question we want to think about, what information is displayed by the dot plot that is not displayed by the box plot? So on one of these, you had to sit there and put a dot for every single piece of data that was collected. On the other, you had to come up with the 5-number summary and create your box plot. So what type of information could you get from the dot plot that you would not be able to get from the box plot? And the second question on this slide asks, what information is displayed by the box plot that is not displayed by the dot plot? So it's the same question, but in reverse. Okay. It is important that you understand what type of information is shown in each type of visual display, as well as what type of information is not shown in each type of visual display. Because if you were creating this for real, you would want to make sure that the visual display you chose to make would actually get the point across to your viewer that you were trying to get across to them. Also, on your unit test, it's going to ask you this type of question because there are certain types of statistics that you will not be able to create based on what type of visual display they are giving you, because some of the information is in certain visual displays but not others. So it's very important you understand the difference between a dot plot and a box plot when it comes to what type of information is actually being given to you. All right. Now it says when you look at the two data displays you actually made 3. What information jumps out to you? So as you look at your dot plot, histogram, and box plot, is there anything from any of them that jumps out to you and you're like, I immediately know this information by looking at it? Next, they ask, what are some contexts that you have seen dot plots, box plots, or histograms outside of this class in your previous life experience? So have you ever seen them on TV or in a movie or at a store somewhere or out in public or another class you might have taken? Where might you have seen any of these visual displays before? And the last question on this slide, what do you understand about data displays? So this is overall, now that you have created all 3 types of visual displays, you have interpreted other groups' 3 data displays, and we've talked about some of the differences between them. What do you understand? What have you taken from this lesson about data displays overall, or certain data displays as opposed to other types of data displays? Okay, now we have our cooldown. And remember, the cooldown has to be completed through the KITM website. So whether you are in class right now or you are at home, please log into your KITM website, go to Unit 1, Lesson 3, and complete the cooldown. This should take about 5 minutes. This one is titled Why Graphical Representations. It says a large school system summarizes the number of teachers at 51 schools in the area. And they're giving you 2 different things here. In the middle, you can see they've given you a frequency table. If you remember from the previous lesson, you created a frequency table in order to draw your histograms. They've also given you the 5-number summary. So in the last lesson, you actually practiced finding the 5-number summary on your own. This time, they're actually giving it to you. So now they want you to create a box plot that shows the information. So you have your frequency table, you have the 5-number summary. Think about which one of those you would actually use in order to create a box plot. And then also create a histogram that shows this information. So you'll use one of these, either the frequency table or the 5-number summary, to create each of these displays. So again, this is more practice for you to show that you really understand how to take data and turn it into either a histogram or a box plot. So take about 5 minutes. This is work for you to do on your own, not as a group. This allows me to look at your results and understand where you are as an individual with this material, as well as where the class is as a whole, and it helps inform my instruction going forward. So please take 5 minutes, try your best on this, make sure you do it on the Kidam website. Okay, now we have our glossary. These are the same terms that we went over in the previous lesson, but we want to make sure that we reiterate what these are so that you know the proper terminology when you talk about it, as well as when you're reading a test question and they use any of these terms, you need to understand what it is they're asking you. So when we talk about categorical data, this is data where they are category answers. So dog breeds. All right. You're not going to give me a number. You're going to give me a breed name, such as golden retriever or poodle. Or colors of flowers. You're not going to tell me how many flowers. You're going to tell me the colors. So it's going to be red, yellow, blue, green, orange, something like that. That is categorical data. Next is distribution. The distribution tells us how many of each value and how spread out the data is. It'll tell us whether all of our data points are real close together and very similar, or whether our data points are very spread out and all over the place. Our 5-number summary. This is what we use in order to create a box plot. Remember, my 5-number summary is made up of my minimum, which is my lowest value. It's made up of my maximum, which is my highest value. It has a median, which is the number that divides my data set directly in half, so that half the numbers are below that and half the numbers are above that. And then we take each of those halves, the lower half and the higher half, and we divide those halves in half each, so that we end up dividing our data set into 4 quarters. And our Q1 gives us the first quarter, and our Q3 gives us the third quarter. So now I have 25% or 1/4 in each quarter. We have non-statistical questions. These are questions where we do not expect any variability. They have a right answer. If I asked 5 people, I would get the same answer from all of them. That is a non-statistical question. Numerical data. So instead of categorical, where you were giving me a name or a category of something, in numerical data, you're going to give me a number quantity of something. You're telling me a measurement of something, such as the weight of a dog. If I asked you, you would give me a number and whatever measurement you weighed it in, pounds or kilograms or whatever. Then we have statistical questions. Earlier we talked about non-statistical questions were ones that gave us an answer with no variability. This time, a statistical question is one where we expect the answers to have variability. So, the most popular musical artist at the school, you do not all agree on that. You're going to give me different answers. When do you typically eat dinner? You do not all eat dinner at the same time. I'm going to have variable answers depending on who I ask. And which classroom has the most books? That's going to have one answer for our school, but it could have a completely different answer for Central or Classical or Hope or Mount Pleasant. So that is the end of our lecture today. Now, any remaining time we have in the class, please use this to either ask me any questions that you might still have about the material, or go into Kidam and do the practice problems. Those practice problems are going to let you see how they might ask questions on the end of unit test. It will allow you to find what you do understand and you can move on from, or what you might still have struggles with, and that will tell you what questions you need to ask me in order to make sure you really understand this material before we get to the end of unit test. So if you were in class today, thank you for your participation. If you had to stay home, thank you for getting on and watching the video so that you can stay up to speed on what we're doing. And if you just needed to go back and watch this again after class, thank you for your commitment to learning, and I will see you next time.